Well, hello everybody. My name is Vinny Langdon. I am the director and founder of the Staten Island Summer of Shorts International Film Festival based in Staten Island, New York. The film festival will be having its fourth year in June 21st, 2025. Submissions are now open, so if you're a filmmaker or a screenwriter, we even have a screenwriters competition this year going into 2025. All the film submission rules and guidelines are available online at filmfreeway.com/Staten Island Summer of Shorts. Tonight is our weekly virtual mixer that we host every Thursday night at 8 p.m. on Zoom, excluding holidays. So for Thanksgiving and Christmas time, we won't be jumping on Zoom, but you are more than welcome to join us. It's open to anybody who has an interest in film or television, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera. And tonight we have a special guest. Speaking of behind the scenes, we have someone who is very experienced as a cinematographer, a DP, and a producer. He has worked for a very long time and very hard and has done a great job on a series called Deadliest, which is on Discovery Channel. And today we'll be talking with producer Doug Stanley and getting a little insight on his background, and what he is currently up to, as well as some of the equipment that he suggests for cinematographers, filmmakers, and is it really that important to choose which camera you pick? We'll learn a little bit about that. Also, he'll give us some tips and some pointers as far as if we want to go and pitch a TV series to a streaming source like Netflix or Amazon, or should we just go the route for going to a TV station directly? So we'll learn a little bit about that tonight. The time is limited, so welcome everybody who's hopping in on the Zoom, and welcome Doug. And let's first off talk about when was the first time you picked up a camera.
Oh boy. Um, there used to be this football star named O.J. Simpson, right? And he probably did some very bad stuff, and that was the beginning of my career professionally. Prior to that, had spent 10 summers working as a professional river guide in Grand Canyon. And so I was fortunate to be down there when a guy brought the brand new format from Sony, the Betacam SP format, which was the metal tape in standard definition. And he brought the first camera down so that they could shoot the materials that they would play at NAB that year to release that new format of tape and recording. And so on that trip, I was a river guide, but I carried this guy's camera all over Grand Canyon and, hiked it up to the high peaks to get the good shots. And it was him. It was how much he loved what he did and the passion that he had that really was infective. And ultimately, I was able to ask him for a job. I'd gone back to school and studied chemistry, and I was getting ready to go to medical school, but my wife got sick, and so I ended up like needing a job. And so I called up the only guy I ever knew who loved what he did for a living so visibly. And he said, "Can you come to LA?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, man, if I have to." And the next thing you know, I was thrown right into the middle of that media pack at the O.J. Simpson trial. And I didn't even know how to operate the mixer. I did audio at first, and I didn't even know how to work it when we were already in the middle of it. And I've got these knobs, and I can see the needles going up and down, and wasn't really sure, how to do all this. But I was right in the center of the focus of the world when it was all going down. And the O.J. Simpson trial was really kind of a great benefit to producers and shooters and people in those days, because television operated quite differently. There were the studio shows and the shows that used regular crews, but a lot of the shows at that time were magazine style shows. So they took advantage of a very large body of freelancers. And so, Freelancer would have a van capable of picking up a producer anytime, but that van had all the camera equipment, lighting equipment, sound equipment in it. So I started in that run and gun world, working, for the tabloids like Hard Copy and Inside Edition and Extra and Access Hollywood and, A Current Affair. And so during the Simpson trial, I worked with those groups mostly, but then what happened is that the whole freelancer community got sucked into the Simpson trial. And so there was a desperate shortness out there for crews, a shortage. And so that offered these new opportunities. And I did audio for a little while, and then I bought my first camera package, my $28,000 lens and my, $80,000 camera body. Everybody thinks cameras are so expensive today. It's like, no, they've always been expensive and at the same prices, really, even though inflation's happening. But anyway, that opened up these opportunities. And so I went off with a show called Lifestyles of Rich and Famous for a long time and did cinematography all over the world. I did a lot of America's Most Wanted, ended up becoming their reenactments director for their crime reenactments because I was a guerrilla, in any given time. They didn't need to roll in trucks and film crews. They could just send me out there and I'd get it done. But it went through a long life of those types of shows. And also I went back into news and I worked for CBS and NBC and ABC national news organizations shooting. And then MTV came along. In the early days of MTV, when they were doing music videos, I shot a bunch of music videos for them and then ended up doing like their top 10 countdowns with Sylvia Garrett in the Field, Rock Across America, um, later on Behind the Music, Controversy, a bunch of shows like that. And then reality kind of came along, and I was with MTV at the time. And so I got involved with a lot of the MTV early reality shows, some of their dating shows like Eliminate and Eliminate Deluxe. But I was there during that rise of reality television. About that time, I got a
Everybody said
strange offer.
this is garbage, but then it was good garbage because the ratings were high, people were watching it.
Yeah, and you learn a lot about shooting in real life situations, and then I got an opportunity to launch the world's first 3D television network in 1998. And so we hit the public markets during the dot-com era, and we ended up on the American Stock Exchange. And we were, for a while, we had so much money just flowing to do production. I think we did about 30 million in production in 3D. At that time, nobody had ever made 10 3D projects. And, I'd completed 45 finished hours of stereoscopic 3D and was able to hire like the best minds in 3D at the time. And it was a great place. But, the dot-com era fell. I thought I was going to walk away with 50 million, but instead I walked away with nothing. I picked up my Betacam again and I said, I know how to make money with this. And I started shooting again. And a guy named Tom Beers, who had heard about my adventure background, which is fairly extensive in river running and expeditions and avalanche control and things. But he recognized that that might be a good benefit for a project he had coming up. And he put together a team of 7 people, and we went up to Dutch Harbor, Alaska, went drinking in the bars, met fishermen, started talking about trying to get on their boats, and ended up, creating the pilot season, the 3-hour season for Deadliest Catch, which was an interesting self-funded project. Discovery didn't buy Deadliest Catch when it was first pitched. So Tom self-funded the 3-hour pilot, and they played it back sequentially. So it played 3 hours straight the first time it played, and it shattered any previous premiere record that they'd ever had at the network. And so, of course, they bought a series from it, and that was how Deadliest Catch was born. I'm a storyteller that likes to see the story come through the lens. That's what I enjoy the most. So I have on many of the series I've done, I've served a dual role both as the series director of photography and as producer of the series over the course of time, doing shows for NBC and CBS and a lot of Discovery Channel and Nat Geo and things like that. I uh, I really, just kept climbing up the ladder to the point where I was developing my own shows and taking them to market and a lot of shows.
Yeah,
And ended up selling a few of them and producing them and getting them on air and ended up really examining being fortunate to have been there when cable television began, coming out of the broadcast world into cable television, then seeing the whole cycle of how cable television started and how it ended, and then now seeing this beginning of streaming and how streaming has changed dramatically. And so my personal goal today is really to is private investment, self privately funded series, which is something that has rarely been done. There's been very few privately funded series, but the market has changed so much right now that I believe that this could be the very best avenue for filmmakers and for people trying to get their programming out there because it's literally, from my point of view, I probably raised, 60 million in my life, something like that. And, it's just as easy to raise a high budget, fairly high budget as it is to raise, $20,000 in my experience, as long as you can put together the documents and you can really nail why this film's appropriate today, why people are going to watch it, who our demographic is.
right.
And so if you look at my business today, I'm sitting in our studio. I wish I could pick up the monitor and show you around the corner, but my girlfriend and Charlene and I built like a 10 camera live studio here, Black Magic Studio. And we also have a photography studio. She's a 30-year portrait photographer. So we have a photography studio as well here, very well equipped. We have a 24-foot jib arm. We have, lots of great toys.
Yeah.
Um, but, we've
No
been
GI
flitting on
Joes.
the
That's all
edges.
camera equipment for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been
So,
flitting on the edges of playing in the world of YouTube and playing in the world of other methods of monetization of content. And so kind of we're playing on this avenue and we're doing that, but mostly Charlene and I have spent 2 years developing a new series called North Point. And as we speak today, I'm on like literally the razor's edge brink of, achieving the funding for it. We've already been told yes. We've been told we're okay, cleared to move ahead, but we still don't have the contract signed. It's been reviewed, needs to be signed, and we need to be funded, but we'll likely, within 5 days, we'll know what our destiny is. And our destiny is probably going to Portugal to shoot for 5 months with a team of about 40 to 50. And we're going to produce, literally shoot 24 hours a day or not, all every day for 5 straight months with 3 teams and all
right.
the bells and whistles and toys to deliver a series that is appropriate for today. It is this about this international community of people from all over the world that have suddenly formed a new community inside of this ancient seaport town that doesn't necessarily want them, but they're there to surf the biggest waves in the world. So if you've seen the series, 100 Foot Wave, it has some similarities because it's in the same location and it follows big wave surfing, but it is told in an entirely different style. This is not interview B-roll. This is full scenes, living with people all day, constant multi-camera on them.
Well, nice. Well, let's take it back because what we just heard from you is throughout the career of Douglas Stanley, you kind of can say you've done a little bit of everything from news to sports to, even the O.J. Simpson following that case. And Do you think your advice to filmmakers or people that just want to get into cinematography, just to have that visual skill set, do you think it's good for them to just jump in and be diverse and kind of when they get offered a job and they might say, well, I'm not really good at shooting political, campaigns. Maybe I should stay away from that. Or, oh, I don't want to do sports. I want to just get into shooting high quality documentary style like you do? Or should they just kind of take any job that comes their way? What's your take on that?
Well, ultimately, I think just to jump into this creative world that we've all chosen right from the get-go, we've kind of already made a lot of those decisions. The truth is that, you're looking at a guy that is essentially chases my passion with 100%, and it's driven me through some damn deserts, I'll tell you. But, the spirit hasn't died. It's really been about the next project and constantly keeping focused on what it is that I want to do. I'm a very big believer in the power of intention, vibration, and being able to manifest. And it's like something I study, my girlfriend and I every day. We have talks about, how we're setting our intentions. But for everybody, they've got those challenges of daily life, and yeah, that take that job thing has always been one of the biggest challenges because it's consistent, and often my two ex-wives will tell you that having your man home all the time or your person home all the time is kind of important. But chasing the passion of filmmaking is something that you commit to in your heart and your soul. And if it's really your stories, your creativity that you want to get out there, it, you can't settle for anything less. Now, that doesn't mean you can't pick up a 4 month shoot and post cycle. You can't do this, you can't do that, because it's all about learning, getting you to where you want to go. But in my experience, um, that focus that you have yourself will really define what you're capable of doing. And what you're capable of suffering is part of what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, now some of the people watching, they probably have heard of Deadliest Catch. And I'm just sitting here thinking of, we were talking about equipment. You were saying doesn't cost that much these days, but the difference between you and I'm shooting a 1 day, 2 day little fun short film, get some friends together. Here, you shoot your lines, shoot your lines. Hey, if it's a rain day, we're not going to film on that day. But if you've seen that show, you guys are out in the middle of the sea, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the type of equipment, the protection for the equipment, the insurance on the equipment. I mean, I'm sure that is a big aspect for the budget. Or how does that work for you?
Well, keep in mind that I was Deadliest Catch is in its 20th season. I was a founding producer and produced the first 7 seasons and was director of photography for the first 7 years. And to be honest with you, as far as Deadliest Catch is concerned, equipment is like Bic lighters. I mean, like we bring 75 cameras knowing we're going to destroy 35 of them, and so it's I have this interesting position of having been the DP of so many different shows that use so much equipment that my feelings about equipment, just right before I was talking to you guys today, I've got a $650,000 camera budget that I'm getting, talking with the purchasing agent right now on a, brand new all lenses there, everything I could ever want for this upcoming series. But, it's just one of those things that marks in your mind a limitation, you know. And the truth is that right now there are cameras because of the versioning that's going on right now. They're going so fast in versions that, as an example, a Sony A7S2 and an A7S3, half of the new features in the three are for still photography. A7S2 is an insanely good camera, and you can pick one up for $1,800 for the body. And it's like is almost as good of a camera as you can get in the world today for this really cheap price. So I really always tell people who want to get into the film industry to really recognize that there are cheap cameras now. You don't get to go and show your, latest Raptor, red camera or whatever, on the set. But the truth is, in a blind test, you could put up 8 cameras in front of me, a lifelong cinematographer. It's really hard for me to really see the difference. And for me, it's 100% story.
Yeah,
I'm odd out in that there's director of photographies that will sit there all day long and tell you, that how critical the image is. But the truth is that I've run standard definition cameras covered with cod mush and water, and people are trying to peer through all that crap on the lens to see what the story is. Like it's actually strange enhancement. When you got people peering through, they don't turn the dial, as we used to say in the old days. But truthfully, it's story. And so for any filmmaker, the object is to make a film. And if you can just step away from these limitations and you don't have to have the name of the biggest cameras and greatest lenses, and you get out there and you just start making it, that's the way to get to the pedestal that you want to be.
right,
Because ultimately, in today's market, the idea of developing your story, developing your script, putting the documents together, having it all be glossy and look super professional, why aren't you asking for 500,000 instead of
right.
30,000? In the world of investors, there's tons of people that invest 500,000 regularly, you know? And
Yeah,
so, and when you're in that class, you're often dealing with an investor that is, they'll invest in, Chris Redlitz, which is one of the Silicon Valley's big investors. He told me, Doug, the way I really work is I invest in things 16 at a time, expecting that one or two of them will hit and cover the rest of them. I'm just spreading my eggs out here, putting it in the best places I can, hoping one of these things kill it. You don't have that level of investor at the $80,000 level.
mm,
So it's like, in the end, to me, I say develop your dreams, put it together, and make it so concise. When I look at it, it has the appearance that not only have you thought about this great film you want to make and these great characters, but it shows that you understand the business of what's going on, why viewers are watching, what are the trending things people are talking about, and all of these things combined in a tight package. To me, I'd rather go after the 500 than the 80, because the 80 always sets you short and you can't really do everything you need to do, including the marketing and the travel and the things you need to do to support your film.
right.
So if I'm going to build something, I'm going after 500,000, not 80. It just is, and I think you guys are all capable of doing that too.
Yeah, so let's talk about that real quick. One of us in the room, for an example, hey, we all had those great ideas. We're watching TV. We're saying, oh, yeah, okay, something like Jersey Shore, something like one of these Real Housewives. I mean, the simplicity of those shows are very fundamental. Any filmmaker in this room has the capability to take their camera and, hey, Jessica, you get into a fight with Stephanie, you pull her hair. Pete, you and I are just hanging out having some drinks at the bar, and 58 minutes goes by, and that's the whole show. What is the selling point for between the difference between us that are sitting here versus the people that are pitching these shows and actually making them on air? Like what's
First of all, I want to say hi to all you newcomers here. Uh, what is the difference? It's a strike of lightning. if you look at Mark Burnett and how he got his start, he had a great idea, but he was living in somebody's pool house and he didn't have the backbone of production behind him. He just had a great idea, and a strike of lightning hit him. But that strike of lightning wasn't just because his project was so amazing. It's because the environment of the day in the market was hungry for those new ideas and new ways to use their medium. And and that is something I've noticed at market. It's like I'd almost rather send somebody 25 to go pitch my shows than to pitch them myself. And it has to do with this perception of hipness in the modern market. And, I, having been to market really for the last 20 years, all the major markets that I go to, it's very interesting to sit down with all the different groups and talk. I really don't feel that just because I've, already delivered 600 plus episodes to television, that I have a great advantage. I mean, there's youngsters sitting right down the plank here that are energetic, the fire's in their eyes, and people
Making
are
TikTok
listening to them,
videos.
you know. But to understand the markets that I work in, you also need to know that they're changing. Historically, there has been a number of conferences every year that are fundamental to anybody trying to sell series to television networks. One of them is called Real Screen. Real Screen is still going on. Real Screen Summit is in Washington, D.C. In the end of January. And then Real Screen West is usually in either Santa Monica or Dana Point, in the middle of the summer, like June something. And then there's NAPT, the NAPT organization, which is the National Association of Television Programming Executives. They would hold two a year. And the advantages of these conferences are basically that all the execs come. And so when you sign up for the conference, which usually costs about $1,200, you get put into this internal email program that allows you to access all these people directly. And so especially if you sign up early, like the first day it opens, people's calendars aren't filled. And if you have the right spark and they think maybe you've got something, they'll give you a meeting. And so, getting in front of people is absolutely key. But
Gotcha.
as I've said, the market's changing quite a bit.
Right. And you did mention that earlier, talking about you saw the end phase of the start of cable TV to the end of it, now streaming. So would it be wise for somebody, just want to welcome along Mrs. Q. Mrs. Q is a New York historian who did tours for many years, and she was on the Travel Channel, Mysteries at the Museum, and her and I even had these conversations. Now, Doug, would you suggest someone like Mrs. Q to present her show, make it built around for the internet and streaming, or should she just go and try to pitch a show to a TV network?
There's a lot of factors that'll play into where really the best home for something is. And also, what your financial exposure is at the same time. And so really let me take a second and give you an overall view of the market today, and then we can talk a little bit more about the various facets of the market. When cable television came along, producers used to bring their shows to the networks, and you would sell your show to the network. They'd fund the show. You got paid to make it, and then they would leave you with international rights. So after you produce the show for as cheaply as you could for them, they would allow you to make additional money through the rights. Another thing that was very important at that time, which changed a lot in the early days of cable, was how brands worked. The last great television deal was the beginning of American Chopper. When American Chopper, in the negotiations, the network locked down the brand American Chopper, and they failed to lock down OCC, Orange County Choppers, which ended up being the brand. At the same time, Jesse James at Monster Garage had done the same thing, keeping the rights to his West Coast Choppers brand. And between the two of those brands, literally more than $1 billion have come through those licensing of those brands. And it's really quite a staggering thing, but it also changed television. No longer could you push your own brands. If there was going to be an uptick, they wanted at least a part of it, if not all of it. And then they began to distribute internationally. And, at one point, Discovery had 100 unique signals going up to the bird and being distributed in different languages. And they would no longer let you hold on to international rights. So ultimately, what you got left with was you got paid to produce it, and then you got a 10% producer fee. So whatever your gross budget was when you delivered the series, if you could, it's a whole other talk. But once you deliver it, you get your 10% producer fee upon final delivery. And so then cable, as it started becoming affected by the oncoming streamers, cable television started reducing the budgets that they were giving per hour, and they started competing for eyeballs with the streamers. And of course, Netflix rose quickly. And in the early years of Netflix, there was this one season where they spent $8.3 billion on programming. I can't even begin to express to you how big that is. That was like NBC at its very biggest level ever, maybe, like that much money. But then their eyeballs were competed for, and other streamers rose, and YouTube started taking more viewers, and whatever it was, the business plateaued at Netflix and other streamers. And they, had enjoyed their glory days of being the new hot guys at the market. And these guys strut at market. In case you don't understand, when you're Netflix, you walk around because you're pretty cool, But then their budgets started getting reduced, and they started getting a lot more picky, and they started licensing more, like they had done in the early days when, a lot of people go, I had a documentary on Netflix, and I always say, when? Because that mattered entirely. If you were there in the early days,
Right.
you could throw your documentary at them and they'd go, sure, thanks, we'll take it,
And now a
but it
lot of
got
people
much more
rather just have
stringent.
their documentary screened on something like Tubi where it's free access for anybody. So it
Right,
it
right.
definitely depends.
And those are good things.
Yeah.
Right. So in the long run, now streamers are competing, huge media conglomerates are buying up the different entities and content libraries. Like Discovery Channel now belongs to Warner Brothers, and they combined with HBO Max, and now they've got this incredible content library that they're streaming and they're reusing, and so purchasing has gone way down. But the need for fresh content hasn't changed. And they're all suffering, as you well know. You turn on Netflix today, it isn't anything like it was 2 years ago, with all brand new content. You have to struggle more. And so that brings the opportunities for people who privately fund content or get their funding privately funded, their content privately funded through investors. And really that's my game today. I'm trying to be right in that position at the right time for once in my life when this new thing started, and so that's really where I'm at. So I'll
Nice.
stop talking for a second.
Yeah, no worries. I know we got 4 minutes left before Zoom kicks us out. It goes by fast. But Stephanie wanted to know, Doug, is there a way she could connect with you and ask more questions at a later time?
Yeah, sure. I'm accessible. The truth is we do a lot of development for other clients as well. We just finished a beautiful pitch package about a family that launched a strip club on a crab boat and anchored it in state waters off of Kodiak, and all hell came down on them, and the feds and the raids, and it's a great story. But the truth is, it's easy to contact me, producer DP at Gmail, and I can have a conversation with you and share, what I know and have a discussion. And for the rest of you guys, I just want to make sure that you guys heard me. Go for the 500,000.
Absolutely. And
Better class investors, there's more, it's more than trying to go after your uncle for 80 grand. And it's just a better way to deal with it.
right, don't shortchange yourself. You got to eat and pay the bills too, and not just produce the show. I think that's a big issue. People say, "Oh, well, I need, 200 grand to produce a little pilot episode for a show," and then you go, "Okay, that's great. That's paying your equipment, your crew. But what about yourself? That's part of it as well." So. Any questions for Doug before we get booted out of here? But I want to thank Doug again for joining us. And maybe after your trip to Portugal, we can have you maybe come to the film festival in June if you're up for that in New York, or hopefully, best wishes with your show. But any questions from, we got actors in the room, screenwriters, directors, producers, everybody's here. Um, any questions for Doug about any of his well, what a nice conversation we had with Doug for our virtual Zoom mixer with filmmakers and actors. And thanks again to Doug for joining us to give us a little bit of insight on from his perspective of this great business. And if you guys want more information about our film festival, again, you could follow us on facebook.com/SI Summer Shorts, or go to our Film Freeway page. You can go to Film Freeway, type in Staten Island Summer Shorts. You can learn a little bit about our film festival, and hopefully you could submit your next short film. And you guys are all welcome to come out to Staten Island, New York on Saturday, June 21st, 2025 at the beautiful Parish House in the New Dorp section of Staten Island. And we're going to have a great time. We're going to roll out the red carpet. The stars will be there. Filmmakers, a great time to mingle and network. And we're going to screen some amazing short films from both New York and around the globe, and give out some awesome awards as well. Again, I'm Vinny Langdon, the festival founder and director, and thank you guys again for joining. And if you want to jump in and join in on meet all of us for our next week's Zoom, go to our Facebook page and follow the page, and you'll see the Zoom link be distributed a couple hours before the event starts for next week. Thanks again to Doug, and best wishes, and we'll see you guys around. Thanks.